The 2023 preseason has come to an end. Now, what have we learned? What are the biggest surprises and what's the biggest disappointment that we've seen? We'll tell you next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am the host of the Locked On Clemson Football Podcast. And guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday. Thank y'all for being a family, but thank you for being our everydayers. And of course, I got my guy, my brother, my partner in crime, Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man, and 2019 national champ with those who LSU Tigers. Yes, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justyn Jefferson, man, that trio over there, man. But you know why we're here, right? Myself, Damian Parsons, we are here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL draft 24/7, 365, man. And guess what? We have a hell of a show on deck for you guys, man. We're talking preseason, right? The end of the preseason, the biggest takeaways, right? What did we learn in the preseason? Because there are things to learn throughout the preseason. What are some of the biggest surprises? And what are some of the biggest disappointments? I would stay tapped in, man, because I think we're going to have a couple surprises for y'all when we talk about when it comes to the disappointments and surprise perspectives of this podcast, man. So make sure y'all stay tapped in the entire podcast. And once again, shout out to our everydayers, DP. Let's get this thing started, man, with what we have learned. But first, let's get in our title sponsor.
This episode of Locked On NFL Draft is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. What have we learned? Keith, I think the thing that I learned was there are different ways to get rookie quarterbacks ready, and that it takes understanding of who you drafted in terms of a rookie quarterback, right? We saw the debacle that was the Trey Lance situation because Kyle Shanahan and that staff didn't really you knew you drafted the raw quarterback. You didn't use him. You didn't give him the reps he needed. He needs the Anthony Richardson treatment. He needs to be on the field so he can get those interceptions out. I'll never forget, Keith, Patrick Mahomes, rookie year, somebody reported he threw 7, almost 8 interceptions in practice. People lost their minds, Keith. And I'm like, that's good. Get it out the way now.
That's pretty hard to do in the practice. Practice is only 2.5, 3 hours long, my brother. And you threw 7 to 8 interceptions. That's pretty amazing. But I agree, DP. If you have to get them out, I'd rather you get them out in practice.
Just get them out in practice. But I think what we've seen with the Bryce Young situation, with CJ Stroud now being officially named the starting quarterback week 1 for the Houston Texans. Of course, Anthony Richardson was named the starter after week 1 of the preseason, right? I feel like those coaches, Frank Reich, DeMeco Ryans, and Shane Steichen, they all knew what they had. They knew they know what quarterbacks they have. They know the young men, the mentality and the work ethic of these young men. And it's like, why wait? Why put another guy in front of you when we could just go ahead and start the train now? Right? Is it going to be smooth on every single track you go around? No, it's not. But understand to let these young men get their reps in, get those mistakes out, let them learn and understand what they're seeing. So that's kind of what I've learned, Keith, is just that truthfully, there's different ways of handling quarterbacks that are rookies in terms of getting them ready to play. Some guys may need to sit, right? But truthfully, and then we kind of see with Malik Willis, year 2, the more reps he got this preseason, the better he looked, the more comfortable he looked. At the end of the day, get these guys their reps, man.
DP, this is going to be so interesting because what I have learned, right? I'm going to go, and you said something. You said some guys may need to sit, right? The one thing that I've learned from this preseason, we may have to look at the green, and this is it. I don't say it's contradictory, right? But it kind of floats in the same situation. Maybe we should be more open-minded to what the Green Bay Packers recipe is, right? Because if Jordan Love hits, right, and I'm talking about hit, he don't have to be a Hall of Famer, right? He just has to, if he's a good quarterback, right? If he's, let's say, Derek Carr-esque type of career, right? Where he's a good starting quarterback. They've done what's really difficult now 3 times in a row, DP, and that's draft a quarterback, develop them, and start them. But I want to talk about the process, right? And the process is heavily criticized. And, you know, at some point, I can't remember that far back with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and how I felt, right? But, you know, just, you know, it's heavily criticized with that situation. And then now, you know, Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. I think this is kind of falling more on Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't think people are critical necessarily of the Packers. But, man, drafting a quarterback, letting him sit behind a really good guy, letting him develop also, right? But like you said, still getting those sparing reps and then, you know, trying to figure things out, or whether it's the mental reps. And then now he's ready, because we've seen DP in this preseason, right? Some of the guys get thrown in there and they may not necessarily be ready. And I think that's the other side of this coin. Or maybe not even this preseason, but just in the past, right? Guys are just, quite frankly, weren't ready. So I want to talk about the Green Bay Packers because, like I said, man, if what have we learned is that Jordan Love looks pretty doggone good, right? And if he's pretty doggone good, we might want to take a page out of the Green Bay Packers notebook, and everybody else might want to sign up because they now have done it 3 times in a row.
Now, and it's crazy enough, Keith, it's a copycat league. Somebody's gonna look at it like, man, I mean, they did it like 3 times. Like, how do you sit a quarterback for more than not just a year? They sat Aaron Rodgers for what, 2-3 years?
Yeah,
Jordan Love 2-3 years.
3, yep.
And if this thing, like you said, if Jordan Love hits, please, dear God, he doesn't become a Hall of Fame quarterback and they end up 3 for 3. Because then the formula is going to be like, people are going to break it down into scientific terms, trying to pick it apart and figure how did they do this in Green Bay with all the scrutiny of drafting Jordan Love. And that was the other part about it too, Keith. They went under fire for taking Jordan Love in the first round instead of trying to move up and get Justin Jefferson or stuff like that, which would have been great for Aaron Rodgers, having Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson. That would have been outstanding, right? But it didn't happen that way. So they went under fire because everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, you're clearly trying to piss Aaron Rodgers off. Like, it's clear you're trying to make him upset. You're not getting him any weapons. So if this hits, man, you talk about the GM and the ownership team there, they be sitting there patting themselves, big fat pat on the back. Because it's like, listen, we stayed the course. We trusted ourselves. And I think, if anything, Keith, what it should also tell other teams is be confident, man. Boy, the Packers fans, the media, everybody killed this organization. If Jordan Love hits, they win the NFC North again. They're back in the playoffs with Jordan Love in his first year as a full-time starter. Like, no, that's what that tells. That should tell all 31 other teams, trust you. Listen, I know this phrase probably does not sound good because people are like, man, trust the process. They associate with the Philadelphia 76ers and that situation with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But I'm not talking about that. But just trust your process. Be patient. Don't give in to the hoopla of all the social media tweets and the TikTok. Don't give in to that stuff, man. Just be patient and trust what you believe. You know, if long as ownership's not gonna fire you, trust what you believe.
Yeah, no, hey, definitely trust your process, right? And that even goes to what we do, right? When we're talking about the NFL draft, talking about prospects, ranking them, giving them draft grades, all of that, man. That's still a trust your process type situation. So, like I said, man, be able to pull a notebook out of the Green Bay Packers. But I think it's going to be fun because we're just getting started. And who knows, Jordan Love may stink it up, right? And we're right back here talking about on the NFL Draft Podcast. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. Let's keep this thing flowing. We have next segment, right? Next segment is our biggest surprise, right? Biggest surprise from this preseason. I don't know what you're going to say, DP. I'm interested. I want to know what's your biggest surprise. So let's get into that coming up next.
Guys, trying to buy tickets to your favorite events at the last minute shouldn't be stressful, but it is because you're hunting down the best price at the last moment in time, also competing with different buyers, dealing with scalpers, all type of unnecessary things. But Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The flash deals on last-minute tickets are outrageous and outstanding. They're easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, and you're going to love the images of the seat views. Guys, right now, if you're a college football fan, you can get a deal of $89 for a ticket, flash deal, to go watch North Carolina face the South Carolina Gamecocks this weekend. So listen to me and listen to me well, guys. All you need to do is to go snag your tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Keith, family, my biggest surprise of the 2023 preseason, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, Justyn Ross. And man, and the crazy thing about it is, if you were Keith, you were on those calls. Well, I presented Justyn Ross to the TDM staff a whole year ago, and I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, I gave him like a second, third round grade, because I was like, listen, he may not be the athlete in terms of explosive, dynamic ability, but the route running, the ball skills, the body control, understanding how to use his body and his frame, he still has that. The ability to box out defenders, set guys up, stuff like that. All the things we saw in training camp. A lot of times you see those clips from training camp against teammates. You're like, all right, is that going to translate against an opponent? Well, for Justyn Ross, it absolutely translated. Like, he's done the same exact things. And for me, man, I mean, his numbers haven't been like outstanding because he hasn't played a ton. You know what I'm saying? Like, he, two receptions in all 3 games. So he's got 6 receptions on, for the preseason, 59 total yards, receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. But the ability to go up and get the ball, red zone, fade routes, get open, all the things that we've seen from him, the ball skills, the trust from the quarterbacks, is still there. And I think that this is a young man, for me, like, coming off the injury, and we weren't sure if we ever going to see him play at a high level again. And just seeing how he's handled training camp in this preseason, he's been a surprise for me, just for the aspect of, I feel like he's going to have a prominent role in this offense for the regular season. I think that he's going to be that big body wide receiver and I think Mahomes is going to give him the targets that he desires. The targets, I think Mahomes is going to trust this dude, man, and go out there and make plays. And it's like, he hits, it's like, all right, just, you got to tip your cap.
Yeah, no, first of all, you're so happy for Justyn Ross battling through the injuries, right? And not just the injury in college, but I believe he had another injury last year, right? That kept him out of playing all of last year, where it looked like a career that was pretty much over, to be honest, right? Like his career, and not to use this term, it was like on life support, right? Like, it was like, man, like it's really close to being over, DP. But for him to be able to rebound and look like prime Justyn Ross before injury, Justyn Ross, right? And look really good. I'm excited, DP, and I'm glad you highlighted his name. And then just to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, and we talked about some of it right on the podcast before, where we talked about this is going to look different, right? It's not going to be the speed over the top. This is going to be the Justyn Ross, the Rashee Rice-esque type show. And I'm excited to see, Justyn Ross, because if he's fully healthy, DP, this was a wide receiver that before injury, some people talking about in college football was top 2-3 wide receiver in the entire nation previous to his injury that really derailed his career. So I'm glad you brought his name up. That was a biggest surprise, because he was a name that everybody was wondering if he's even going to stay in the NFL. But DP, my biggest surprise, I was going to go Kansas City Chiefs, right? But I had something in the back of my mind. I said, I don't know if I'm going to go there. I'm going there. You know what, DP, my biggest surprise is the San Francisco 49ers trading Trey Lance to who? The Dallas Cowboys. And the biggest surprise, the Dallas Cowboys. Y'all, like, they couldn't help but put themselves in the mix, DP. They couldn't help it. Like, San Francisco was getting way too much publicity that the Dallas Cowboys said, you know what? We have to jump in here. We want some of that media attention. We need some of that. We don't have enough controversy going on. People are talking about the Dallas Cowboys in too much of a good light, right? They're talking about how tough our defense is and how Dak Prescott is being a leader and how our running back room is going to be solid. They had to do something to shake the room, DP, and they shook the room. I don't get it. With the Trey Lance, what did you get from it? We could just have a conversation, DP. Why make this move? what was the point? Where are we going with this? Like, 'cause this just brings, because I watched the interview, DP, and it was post. I think it was post. I seen some of it. I think it was post the trade, and a couple people interviewing Dak Prescott, and you just look at the guy, and he just dealing with stuff that, like, we even have to answer these questions. Like, it's one of those, like, why did they do this? Because now I have to talk about this. But DP, I won't get your perspective on it.
First thing, Jerry going Jerry. Okay, that's the first thing. Jerry Jones going Jerry Jones, man. And it's everything you said, man. Like, for me, it was when I saw, like, because I can't remember what I was doing, but I remember looking at my phone because it buzzed, and I saw the report. And all I read was Trey Lance has been traded. Now, the first thing I said was, like, let's go, get him out of San Fran. Like, you know what I mean? And I knew that he wasn't going anywhere that he could play right now. But I was still hoping it was Minnesota. This is the place I've been wanting him to go the whole offseason. Then I read down, it said Dallas Cowboys. I was like, what is going on? I was like, what are we doing right now, Jerry? Like, what is the point of this? Like, but I'm gonna tell you what as I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, all right, there's so many different ways to spin this.
I want to know when you, if I'd say DP, what is the most optimistic outlook for this? I want to know what like when you try to sit there and take this in your NFL draft right mindset. How did you take this in?
I took this in, and I hate it. I was like, I feel, and I've seen a lot of people say, no, this ain't the case. I feel like this is low-key kind of a Dak, get it done. You know what I mean? One of those type of situations, because you trading for a toolsy quarterback that has 2 years left, 2 guaranteed years left on his deal, right? That after, I think by next year, you got to figure out the 5th-year option if you want to pick it up, okay? So he's dealt with some injuries over the past couple years, and not while he's played well in the regular season, the postseason can be kind of argued, right? And he's coming up on a contract, so which would be like would that be his second like big contract with Dallas? I think if he signs another one,
he has this one already. Yes, it'll be a second.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like I sat there and I said, man, what if Jerry's kind of leveraging himself low key? Whereas like, all right, even if Dak, this thing doesn't work out this year and you don't re-sign Dak after 2024, maybe you go ahead and trade him. I was like, that's the only logical thing I could think of, Keith, because nothing else made sense. Nothing else made sense. I was like, I don't know what other way to go about that. Like, I understand like a Baltimore Ravens saying, listen, man, we get this kid in our system, stuff like that. We had Tyler Huntley, Lamar, even though we paid Lamar, he's battled injuries the past couple of years, stuff like that. It's just like an insurance policy. For the Cowboys, I'm like, what was the reason? What was the reason? I don't understand the reason for this trade. I just tried to make some sense of it. And I was like, maybe they're putting a little pressure under Dak. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I looked at this DP and this, what it was a 4th-round pick, right? A fourth-round pick for Trey Lance. So everybody's like, okay, cool. That is worth.
Buffalo tried to send a 7th, if I'm not mistaken. So the Bills tried to get him as well.
Yeah, so you send a 4th-round pick over there, and everybody's like, okay, that's a pretty good deal, right? You got a 4th-round pick for a quarterback that has high upside potential, stuff like that. But when I look at it, right, it's the scenario and the situation, and I'm gonna bring it back to Jonathan Taylor, right? Because if we're talking about NFL drafting, right, drafting and using draft picks to put yourself in position to win now, right? Because Cowboys are one of those teams that quote unquote believe that they're in win now mode. So if that's the case, right, and y'all on a Super Bowl hunt, then I would have packaged more picks, right? Talking about the NFL draft, I would have packaged more picks to go get Jonathan Taylor and just be done, right? Because if you're moving on from Dak anyway, you don't plan on paying him, then that's money off the books anyway, right? When we're talking about moving forward. So it just, DP, I'm much like you. I'm confused. Let's watch this thing play out, because this is the other thing. You traded for him after the preseason. So you don't even know how he's going to play. So now he's going to be sitting there, right? And the only way you're going to see him is either, hopefully Dak never gets hurt, right? But if you don't, if Dak doesn't get hurt, you're not going to see him, right? Dak plays really bad. It's going to be that, right? Which you don't want that to happen, because then now your quarterback is playing really bad, right? Or you're going to have to wait till next preseason to take a look at him. And then you're just back in this situation once again. So I'm confused. One of the more polarizing names, and he's one of the more polarizing players in the sense of the fact of, in a weird way, he hasn't played a lot, but I feel like Trey Lance has a fan base. And like just because you
does,
watch
yeah.
how the 49ers were, they were very split in how they felt about Trey Lance. There were some people that's all in on Brock Purdy, and I feel like there was some people that's like all in on, man, I believe in Trey Lance. So I think that's already another polarizing name that you're putting more pressure on Dak Prescott. So we'll see. NFL Draft Podcast, we'll definitely talk about it with DP. That was, for me, that was my biggest surprise. I had to get it out. I thought about not going there, but I had to go there. I had to give it to the Dallas Cowboys. But shout out to Cowboys Nation. Y'all know I rock with y'all. But DP, coming up next, man, we talk about our biggest surprise. We got to flip the other side of the coin, right? What was the biggest disappointment, right? When you cut on preseason football and you said, what am I watching? So coming up next, man, y'all gonna like these two selections that we have for the biggest disappointments for preseason.
My biggest disappointment of the 2023 preseason, quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, Stetson Bennett. And I was disappointed because in the first game, he did some good things. Like, he had some legitimate throws. I'm talking about anticipation, getting the ball out, accurate. And I'm like, okay, Stetson, prove me wrong.
It must have been good. Yeah, it must have been good for you to say that. Like, because we know how you feel about Stetson Bennett. So for you to say it was good, it must have been really good.
Listen, man, one thing, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm not a Stetson Bennett guy. So I was like, all right, Stetson, you showing me some stuff here. But then as that was just kind of watching the games live, right? Then, of course, what we do. We get into the tape. And then I start seeing things. I'm like, Stetson, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, you're just you're staring down reads. You're throwing interceptions right to defenders. This past game, week 3 against the Broncos, he threw an interception right to Drew Sanders. Drew Sanders is the underneath defender, Keith, staring him dead in the face. And he just let it go. Right to Drew. It was an accurate pass to the defense. And I'm like, all right, Stetson. And I'm gonna go even in depth, right? 10 dropbacks, 9 attempts, 4 completions, 14 yards, 1.6 yards per attempt, and 2 interceptions. That was Stetson Bennett's stat line in week 3 versus the Denver Broncos. He threw 2 picks.
That is disappointing.
It was so bad.
I seen the score.
It just, even week 2, Keith, against the Raiders, same thing. Bad decision. And when you're watching the tape, you're seeing him make mistakes. Bro, you are almost 30. You're seeing him make mistakes that you shouldn't be making for the amount of football he's played. If Anthony Richardson makes some of those mistakes, Keith, first of all, it's going to get blown up on ESPN, on NFL Network, and how raw he is, and is it the right decision to start him and all this stuff like that, because he's like 20, 21 years old. Stetson Bennett is like 27. Okay, like, you know what I mean? He's almost 30. So you shouldn't be making all those bad decisions because you've played enough football to know what coverages look like, post-snap, pre-snap. You should know what it looks like and what good decision-making is. You play for Kirby Smart, for God's sake. Nah, brother, like the Raiders, he did the same thing. I don't know what happened. He throws the ball right to the corner. I'm like, Stetson, why? You know what I mean? So for me, the biggest disappointment, even like I said, I was not the biggest fan of him, but I kind of felt good after that first week of preseason, and then watching the decision making. And he had about 3 or 4 picks within the last couple of weeks that were dropped. Like, so he was still putting the ball in bad situations. They just weren't all of them weren't intercepted. So he's been a disappointment for me.
Yeah, okay. All I seen was the score yesterday, right? And the score was what I think the Broncos beat them 41-0 or something like that. It was a crazy score. So I knew there had to be some interception, some crazy stuff going on in that game. DP, you went to Stetson Bennett. What was it, 3rd, 4th round pick? I'm going to the number 1 overall pick, DP, and not so much Bryce Young. The Carolina Panthers, man, because we've talked about this team in the past, and it's been like the Carolina Panthers are not that bad. I feel like that's been an overall sentiment, right? Like even heading into the draft, it's like, oh no, they're not that bad. They get a quarterback, they're gonna be in a good spot. I think people were looking at this defensively. Offensively, I'm out. I'm out on the perspective of this. I always believe in surrounding a quarterback with pieces, right, that is going to directly benefit him. And when you watch this Carolina Panthers offense, they have a lot of the same, right? It's 6'2-ish, You know what I'm saying? Guys that's probably running 4.5s to high, like low 4.6s. How are we going to separate, right? And then Bryce is potentially holding on to the football, waiting for these guys to get open. Even if you run quick game, well, you have to get open quickly, right? And if you don't have guys that's getting open quickly, the quick game does not exist, right? And that's the part, DP, that I'm gonna say I'm out. I'm extremely worried, right? It may come week 3, DP, and then I'm all the way out. But I'm gonna give them an opportunity. And the reason why I'm being critical in preseason is because you named Bryce Young the starter, right, DP? You named him the starter. So when you have starting quarterback, there are certain things, and just taking you through practice, right? And practice reps, and then you want to simulate some of those things in these preseason games so you can kind of get a good idea of what it's going to look like. So what I'm saying is for let's take I'm trying to think of a veteran quarterback, Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen with the Bills, right? With the Buffalo Bills doing preseason, it's more so knocking the rust off, right? But what the Carolina Panthers are doing, you're trying to evaluate this, right? Like you're going out there and you're calling this stuff because you're trying to fine tune so that way when you get to week 1, you have something that looks like a competent product. And right now, DP, like it's been a struggle, man. And I think you tweeted about it, right? It's been sail routes, 7 routes, right? And you see the accuracy from Bryce Young, but it's just like, how many times are we gonna just be able to run this concept, right? Before defenses, get on top of that. And that's the part that worries me, DP. I don't know how you felt about it, but that was my biggest disappointment. I was hoping for just a little bit more dynamic stuff, but this kind of support system as far as the running back, wide receiver core, it was what I thought it was, and I wanted it to be better.
No, I think I think the hype machine got really out of control for this team. You know what I mean? And they almost made the playoffs with Steve Wilkes and everything with inept quarterback play, and people are like, man, just give us a quarterback. And that would have been fine if you didn't trade DJ Moore in the grand scheme of things. Like you got rid of an actual number 1 wide receiver,
and
you had people
was Christian McCaffrey. He was on, he played earlier in the season. And then he got traded, so he was there. So you still like you add DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey to any offensive unit, it's different, right? Like we're talking about different, but you traded away your 2 best offensive assets, like skill players.
And they were okay with it because, well, we're getting Bryce Young. And I think that's what's like the fan base, the media, like you're putting him in a tough spot, man. Like legitimately, he's sitting in the pocket waiting for guys to get open. And it's so much scheme having to do the work for the wide receivers. And I hate that in general. I want my wide receivers to be able to break through the scheme. And the scheme is just a complementary piece to them. Not, hey, the only way you getting open is off of glance routes and off of pick routes. And, Adam Thielen, I'm watching him in camp. Jeremy Chin's, who's a hybrid linebacker safety, he's running stride for stride with him in one-on-ones. That concerned the crap out of me because I'm like, okay, if you can't outrun him, who said you're going to outrun Greg Newsome Jr. with the Browns? Who said you're going to outrun Marshawn Lattimore with the Saints? Can you outrun even Darren Hall, the second, third year corner who's like CB3 when Jeff Okudah's healthy for the Falcons, and in the corners for Tampa. This is how I view this, Keith. I'm with you on them being a disappointment because I expect them to be probably the offense that sees the most man-to-man coverage all of 2023. I'm going cover 1. I'm telling them, beat me vertical. Bryce, I know that you got a good enough arm, but it's not great. You and your receivers are clearly not up to the task, like talent-wise right now. You got to hope that TMJ can stay healthy and break out. And you got to hope that, was it Jonathan Mingo? But he's raw.
Mingo. And
he's raw.
And he is. And that's why I brought it up. I want to tie it back to the draft. Like you walk out of there, right, the NFL draft, and you walk out with and there were other receivers and pieces on the board, right? Like you look at, and I don't want to bring them back up, but the Green Bay Packers, right? They went and got Dontavian Wicks. They went and got Jaden Reed, right? And this was the back end of the draft, right? So no, Jaden Reed went early. Dontavian Wicks went later,
like 5th round somewhere in there.
Yeah, he went later. So I think that they could have made more of an effort through the draft, right? Like, because if your defense is solid, right, or you feel like you have a solid overall defense, then put more of them offensive pieces. And I get it. You drafted the guard from North Carolina State. You got him with one draft selection, but I think it was a glaring, and I hope that it doesn't play out this, but there's a glaring miss of miscalculating what this offensive skill unit was for the Carolina Panthers.
No, I agree, Keith. Now, like I said, I think Bryce is going to be good, but just trying to put so much on a rookie quarterback to be Superman, to be a superhero in your offense, he needs the rest of the team. And then that also hurts the offensive line. You want them guys to block for 7 seconds? Like, that's just not realistic. So I'm with you. I'm with you on this being a disappointment. And I'm not out yet, Keith. Like you said, I'm not out yet, but my bags are packed. All right, my bags are packed. Like I got my phone out. I'm already looking at Ubers and Lyfts and all that. I'm about to get up out of here, man, because this is not look good right now.
Nah, man, definitely. But look, that wraps up today's show, man. Wrapping up the preseason, man. Like you said, man, what we've learned, the biggest surprise and the biggest disappointments. Y'all tap in. Y'all let us know what were your biggest disappointments, right, man? If you're watching us on YouTube, man, shout out to you guys, man. Make sure y'all comment, right? Let us know. Like I said, respond to us. We respond back. Twitter, you know where to find us, right? You find DP at DP_NFL. Simple enough. You find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now. The Talent Code, man. Reach out to us. Let us know, man, whether you agree or disagree, man. What are y'all takes from preseason? Tap in and let us know.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it's available on YouTube. Hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever we drop content on the channel. Guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday. Thank you for being the family and our everydayers. Like Keith, drop the handle so you already know where to find us on Twitter, or X as they call it. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.